Hi, my name is Leandro Gonzalez, and this is the video for User Story 697, Assign Devices to Sub-User. As you can see in the User Story card in Mingo, this user story is intended to let admins be able to assign one or more devices to a specific sub-user. In the acceptance criteria section, you can see all the requirements for this specific user story, such as that clicking on a user on the sub-users page, it's going to highlight the selected user. After you select a user, there's going to be a table on the bottom of the screen that is going to be displaying the devices assigned to that selected user. Admins should be able to click on a plus button on the devices table, and from there select one or multiple devices and assign those devices to the selected user. So this user story was implemented in Spring 3 and it had 16 story points. Its priority was at most. So after creating the user story card, I will go into the Springboard and create all the tasks for that specific user story. So as you can see, this specific one has 5 tasks. One of them is to create the diagrams, and by diagrams I mean the use case, the sequence, and the class diagrams. We also have the task for the highlight functionality of the selected user. There's also a task for showing the devices assigned to a specific user, another card for implementing the device assignment functionality, and finally there's a task for conducting unit testing on the user story. So after setting up all the user story and the story tasks in Mingo, I will go ahead and start working on the UML diagrams. Before I jump into that, let me show you how this functionality works on the system, so you have an idea of how it is. So an admin would go to the users page, and here he will see a list of all the sub-users he has created. Upon clicking on one sub-user, there's a table that appears at the bottom of the screen that contains all the devices that selected user that's now highlighted has access to. For instance, SOP1 has access to 1 user, and SOP2 has access to 4 devices. So the idea is to have admins click on a user, see it highlighted, and then click on this add button, select one or multiple devices, and click on assign. So now let's jump into creating the use case diagram. So the actor for this specific use case is going to be an admin. So that admin, the main use case is view sub users. So the system displays a list of the sub users that admin has created. This view sub users use case has an extended use case, which is select sub user. Because not mandatorily you need to select a user, you can just go to the users page and take a look at the list. If you decide to select a sub-user, then it is mandatory. That's why we'll have an include relation with the list assigned devices. So anytime you click on a user, you're going to see a list of the devices that he or she has access to. The select sub-user use case is also extended by an assigned devices, and it is an extend relationship because you do not necessarily need to assign a device. You could just see the list of devices assigned. After creating the use case, I went ahead and created the sequence diagram for this specific interaction. So as you can see, the admin interacts with the users page, that it makes a request to a controller to get a list of all sub-users. The user controller then called the user service, which in turn makes a call to a Firebase function to fetch all the sub-users. Firebase responds with a JSON list of all sub-users, and the the user service returns this list to the controller. From there, admins could select a user on the controller, which is going to make a call to the service, and this one is in change going to make a call to a Firebase to get a list of the devices of this specific user. And from there, the controller can call the service for the assign device functionality, which is going to in turn make a call to Firebase to save the device assignment information. And then everything is going to be returned to the users page in the form of the sub-users list. In addition, we can see the class diagram that has all the classes depicted on the sequence diagram. So we have a users page that has a sub-users list and a method to display the users page. This users page interacts with the user controller with the user service, and the user service with Firebase functions. Now let's jump into the code. Before going into the code, I worked on the diagrams by using Start Your Mail, which proved to be a very useful tool to creating all these kinds of diagrams. Now let's jump into the code. I use Atom as my main text editor. As you can see here, under my public folder, there is a views folder that contains all the views. In this case, it is the users view, the one that contains all the sub-users page. So this users page is linked to a user controller, which is the one that calls the assign device functionality by calling the user service. So we could go ahead and change the create diagrams task to done. So the implementation was done for the highlight. I would go ahead and pass it to testing. You can see that whenever you click on a user, it appears a list with all the devices they have access to. So that also is in testing. You could go ahead and assign devices to a selected user. So that also is in testing. And then our last task is to conduct unit testing. So I didn't use any tools for testing. The unit testing was conducted by having the users tested. So for instance, a test case could be selecting a user, clicking on the add button, not selecting anything, and click on assign. As you can see, nothing is going to change because no devices were selected. Another test case could be to click on assign and select just one device. So if we click on assign devices, that one device is going to be added. If we click on multiple devices are going to be added. And the last test case I conducted was to click on add and click on a device that is already assigned. So for instance, SOP6, I'll click on assign. Nothing will change because that device is already assigned. So after conducting user testing, I can go ahead and change my tasks to done, as well as conduct unit testing. Now I would go ahead and click on my user story and set its status to done after finishing. So once again, this was a video for the assign devices to sub-user user story. My name is Leandro Gonzalez, and thank you for your time.